Hey everybody, it's DarthVex here, and I've got a video to show you. This is some Titanfall footage I recorded earlier today, but it's a little weird because I'm not going to be talking about Titanfall or the Xbox One or anything to do with that. I want to talk to you about Nintendo and where I'd like to see Nintendo going. I don't think they're going to do this, but this is something I've talked with my friends about before, and my friends on Xbox Live as well, and I'm sure I've read this somewhere. Some editor somewhere has written this in a magazine, maybe, and I glanced at it, or I saw somebody post something similar on the internet. But it's not something people are talking about, and so I'm going to put that out there, but I still don't think people are going to talk about it enough that anybody at Nintendo, the guys who got their heads in the sand and they aren't paying attention to anything, I don't think they're going to hear about it because I doubt Nintendo will ever do this. But this would be the dream, and I think a lot of gamers would agree with me. This would be amazing if Nintendo did this. And that is, Nintendo needs to stop making consoles and focus on the games. And make the games for the other consoles and even for PC. They need to stop making consoles and just become a third-party developer. And this isn't a new idea. It's not something that's never been done before. Atari did it first, then Sega did it. And those are both console manufacturers that basically were put out of business by Nintendo. But the difference is, I think, Nintendo put them out of business because of the games. It wasn't the consoles. Nobody was going, oh wow, the Nintendo Entertainment System is so much more powerful than every other computer out there, or every other system out there. But especially when it comes to things like the Sega Genesis and all the other consoles that were out there, they really were more powerful. The Wii is not more powerful than the Xbox 360 or the PS3. The Wii U is definitely the weakest console this generation. It's also the wackiest console of this generation. The Wii was pretty wacky, but the Wii was wacky in a good way. They lucked out because the Wii was like this gimmick that people had to have. And now there are oodles of Wii systems sitting in people's homes that aren't getting used. My parents have a Wii, my sister has a Wii. When I've talked to them, they don't use them at all. They have friends who have Wiis, they don't get used at all. They have friends who have kids, and they still don't really get used because the kids don't want to play the Wii. The kids want to play the Xbox 360, or the PlayStation 3, or the Xbox One, or the PlayStation 4, or they want to play their handhelds. And that's one area that Nintendo still excels at. They're still winning in the handheld market. And, if Nintendo wants to keep making handhelds, I'm all for that, although I'm not a big handheld guy because the average handheld owner is, it's the preteens and the kids. They're the ones that buy the handhelds. And Sony has a small niche market with the younger teenagers who buy the PSPs, but they're not beating Nintendo when it comes to handhelds. But where Nintendo's real strength lies is with their games. And I have a special place in my heart when it comes to Nintendo because that was the first console I owned. I remember Christmas of, I think it was 1988, and my cousin got a NES for Christmas. And we were all over at my grandmother's house, and he opened that present, and there is a picture out there somewhere, somebody's got it, my parents or my grandparents have it, of him opening that gift, and you can see me in the background, and I've got like jealous rage all over my face because I did not get one of those. I had a Commodore 128 at home that I played games on, and so my parents didn't even think of getting me a console. I'd never shown any interest really in the Atari because my friends had them, but I wasn't big on the Atari because most of the games, I could find something similar or something even better for the computer. And so, but with the Nintendo and Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, oh my gosh, I was amazed and I was jealous. I'd seen them before that Christmas, but when my cousin got that, I was so jealous. Oh man. was so jealous. And so I ended up making a deal with my parents that if I saved up enough money, they would match however much I saved up, and I could get one when I had enough, with their help. I ended up getting one, I think, that very next summer. And, that was a lot of money. I think it was like $100 was the original NES price. And that was a lot of money for me, at least when I was like, let's see, that would have made me about 9 years old. So, and in today's money, that's like $250. So, I mean, and the only source of income I had at that age was, doing chores for my parents and stuff like that. So, I remember Nintendo quite fondly. I have really good memories. But it's really not the consoles, it's the games. And the console manufacturers don't make money from the consoles themselves. Not really. The way they make money is from the third-party producers. They sell licensing fees to companies like Activision, that once was a part of Atari, and then they broke off and became the first third-party game manufacturer. And EA and all these other companies like ZeniMax that owns Bethesda, all these other companies that make games for multiple platforms, and in order to put their games on the consoles, they have to pay the console manufacturers licensing fees for each and every copy that gets sold, which means basically for every copy that gets sold of Call of Duty Ghosts that gets sold for the Xbox One, Microsoft gets a tiny little piece. They get a piece of the pie. Microsoft didn't have to spend any money to make that game. They didn't have to spend any money on advertising, on production, on shipping the game to the store so it can be sold. Microsoft spent nothing, and they're getting a profit when the game is sold. That's how they make their money. Now, back in the day when Atari made their console, and they made the games, and they sold the games, and they did all the work. That was how it originally was. But when Activision broke off and made that first third-party developer, they made a deal with Atari to pay them those fees, and over time it changed. And by the time the Super Nintendo and the N64, between those generations, it dramatically shifted to the third-party manufacturers were the ones that were actually funneling the profits into the console manufacturers. But the problem is, Nintendo, now for 2 generations, has made consoles that the third-party manufacturers, they don't want to deal with. They didn't want to deal with the Wii U because it was with the Wii, because it was drastically different from the other consoles. They had to change their games quite a bit to get them to work on the Wii. And now they have to change them even more to get them to work on the Wii U. They either can, and for them to make the second screen that on the device, to make that work, they have to do even more work. Otherwise, it just sits there with a blank screen while you play what normally everybody else sees. If they want to put something special on there, they get up to do even more work. And that's why I think Nintendo is doing their fans a huge disservice, because there are tons of us that if there was a Zelda game that came out for Xbox One, PS4, and PC this Christmas, it would outsell every other game. It would be the best-selling game of the year, because it's Zelda. And I think that's what Nintendo needs to do.